The following is a fan-based discussion and is owned by Toei Inc. and Bandai. We claim no ownership to the shows we are discussing and is based on pure opinion.
Hey everybody, welcome to Tokucast, and now we're doing another episode of Who Would Win.
So excited.
And this is Jacob's first episode, so welcome. And we're going to try something a little different this time. Instead of just two of us arguing back and forth for God knows how long, because knowing me and Marcus, we could do it till we're blue in the face.
It's true. Well, blacker.
Purple in the face.
Anyway, Jacob's going to participate as well, but as an impartial judge. So we're going to be discussing these two Kamen Riders. We're doing Kamen Rider this time on who would win, and he's going to ask us a few questions, and at the end he's going to say who he think would win based on our argument. But as always, let us know if you agree or disagree in the comments. Today's episode: Kamen Rider W versus Kamen Rider Drive. So, cop versus detective.
Mm-hmm.
Even though he's half boiled,
He becomes full bullet at the end.
this should be fun.
So we're gonna end up starting with some opening arguments. Matt, why don't you go first?
Let's hear him.
All right, Kamen Rider Drive. He is a very good cop. He is very smart. He is very dedicated, and he has a lot of tools at his disposal. The variety that he gets with his shift cars, who I would like to also add are sentient and can help him even if he's not using them, give him an edge, not only in speed, but in power and in weapons, in my opinion. He will I'm gonna try that again. No pun intended, he will overrun you with the amount of tires.
That he has?
Yes.
Okay. Now, W, of course, doesn't end up having a lot of forms, but he does have one biggest up that Drive really doesn't end up having any access to. Philip is Google.
Philip is Google.
Philip is legitimately Google.
He's not wrong.
I know he's not wrong, but I can't counter-argue during an open argument, so I'm just going to be quiet like a good person.
He's like you said, he's extremely smart. He could basically come out. He ends up helping Shotaro with his detective abilities, and finding out just things throughout the world. He ends up having information that are basically ends up being private. He can end up finding out anything about anyone using the Gaia, the Gaia Force that he ends up having access to. Shotaro is a very, very good fighter. He's been doing this for a lot longer than Drive at this point. And he's so used to his powers. There are, of course, various ways that he can end up using them that, as we said, he can use them very, very well. With the various forms that he ends up having, he only ends up having a few, but he can use them in very different ways.
I'm holding myself back because I have counter-arguments.
Okay, well let me ask you this.
Okay.
All right.
Philip is Google.
Google,
Can he use that? I don't remember. It's been a while since I've seen the show. Can he use that while they are?
Yes.
No, he can't.
Yes, he can.
He's never done it while they're together.
Yes, he has.
He's always done it before transformation.
No, he's done it while they have been access to it.
Give me one example.
He ended up using it. This is more towards the end of the show, but he did use it while they were in Extreme. So I don't doubt that he can end up using it while he can.
Or they can only do it while they're in Extreme, because Extreme is different than a normal henshin, because Extreme takes Philip with him. You gotta remember that. The bird comes and picks him up and then puts them together. Normally, he is unconscious and they are in one body. He has to have his own, body to do it. So you can either only do it before henshin or during Extreme.
I don't see why he wouldn't be able to do it. There's no evidence in the show that shows that he wouldn't.
No, I do, because if he's only used it in Extreme and he has to be in body to do it, I can understand.
You have no evidence to say that he can do it while henshin.
But there's no evidence to say that he can't do it while henshin either.
Well, I'm going to side with him on this one because he made a better argument. But
I
want to ask you something. Who would you say had the best vehicle?
W.
Tell me why.
W's bike is probably one of the most amazing things that I've ever seen in a Kamen Rider show. Not to mention it's a sports bike, one of my personal favorites. The green and black is amazing, and he ends up having the big tank that can go with it as well.
I have a question.
What makes the bike so good, though?
It has those interchangeable...
You mentioned aesthetics. You need to give me
those
things.
Interchangeable backs. It can basically end up flying. I mean, yes, Drive can do that as well, but he ends up having to have two other people, or at least those two other things, to be able to go ahead and
Well, if you're going to say that, then are we going to allow W to use the tank because it's a separate vehicle needed? Because if that's the case, then I can get those two hoverboards to also fly.
I'll allow it.
So I can meet you in the air, but also, sorry, I forgot the car's name. Trideron can use the shift tires as well as weapons. He can throw them out as projectiles. So, I don't know. I would say I can.
But to be able to use those shift tires, he still ends up having to actually put them into the changer.
Yeah, I guess you're right. Yeah, all right.
He has it's a little bit limited on that one.
But no, you got me there. I'll admit defeat on the vehicles, but I still feel like Drive can hold his own. May not win out, but I feel like he can hold his own vehicle to vehicle.
Well, the question is who would win. Tell me why he would win.
Drive would win because Drive is not alone. Dr. Belt is there. Dr. Belt is completely familiar with every single shift car because he's made it with Schreiderone, because he made it. He knows exactly what it can and cannot do, and he knows exactly what to do to have it edge out.
But Philip is still Google.
Okay, he can look up where something is. That doesn't mean...
No, it's not looking up where something is. He can look up the weaknesses of that thing.
Explain how that would help in a fight. Because one, him being Google takes time and concentration, which he cannot do mid-fight.
Of course, that's going to have to be something when we end up getting to those final forms, but that's something that we're going to end up having to wait to get to. The fact that Philip, of course, would end up having some information on these things because he keeps literally everything in his head, they're going to end up looking each other up before the fight ends up starting.
What I'm saying is it takes time and concentration for him to access all that information because it is a lot of information. And when Drive is shooting at you, it's hard to do that. Yes, Shotaro can pick up the slack, but it's still hard.
I'm not doubting it's hard. But we were still hard in the vehicles. I'm going to end up saying that Dub is going to end up winning this one just because of how fast everything can end up going for him. A lot faster than him constantly end up having to use the shift cars every single time.
But
it's
how long?
Going to take some time.
Yeah, it's also going to take time to switch to a different bike back.
Now, we're not sure how that ends up working in terms of the actual show itself because the show does slow that part down. We're not sure how fast that can end up going.
Well, from what I understand, he has to be in the tank, it has to spin the little revolver dial or chamber, and then it's got to attach. That takes time. A lot more time than it's going to take Drive to take a little card out of his wrist, put a new one in, and shoot at you.
But still, he's in that tank. Nothing can end up getting through that thing. That thing doesn't get destroyed.
That wins on vehicles.
Damn. I think there's just bias at this point.
No, there isn't bias at this point because I haven't seen Drive.
That's a very good point. So he's going in blind. But so, I would like.
You won me over because you said it is going to take him a lot less time to switch out the cars on the wrist. That tank thing is going to take forever for him to switch around. It's going to take too long. Yes, he can fly, but so can Drive. The sentient Trideron is sentient. That is going to help.
To an extent, yeah.
To an extent,
artificial
to
intelligence.
an extent, but still, artificial intelligence is still intelligence. He's still sentient, which is more than pretty much anything that W has to work with when it comes to his vehicles.
All right. Do you have any other questions before?
I do. I have many more questions.
Yay!
Okay, tell me about their attacks. Tell me about their forms.
How much time do you have? Because
Drive has a lot.
Yeah.
So please start.
Well, he only has 3 main forms.
Well,
okay. So Drive. If you want to talk about form changes or collectibles, let me specify. Because collectibles, as in the shift cars versus the types. What do you want?
Tell me about shift cars.
How long you got? All right. So in his normal type speed mode, which he can use max flare, which allows him to get.
Just give me the highlights.
All right. Fire-based abilities, shadow, spike, projectiles, and even able to use it in close range if somebody gets too close. Shadow allows him to throw projectiles and multiply to a max of 4. Hunter can put his targets in cages. Vegas can drown them in coins if he gets a good roll because it is a slot machine. Mixer allows him to use cement to stick his enemies in place. Monster.
You're good. Tell me about his mid-season upgrade.
That was formula.
That was formula. If you want mid-season upgrade as opposed to just all of his other types.
Just tell me about it.
Formula allows him to take on the shape of a Formula 1 car. So he gets increased speed, and we're talking Axel levels. We're talking Cheetah O's levels of speed. I don't know about Kabuto levels,
No,
no,
you can't.
but it is.
No
fun.
one's that.
And he gets 3 other shift cards that he can use just in Formula, which are Manturn, Jackie, and Sparner, which doesn't really use too much. It's mainly just to keep Formula stable, but they can be used as weapons as well.
Okay, tell me about his final form.
Type Trideron allows him to pretty much combine with his card. It's his ultimate form. He can not only use every shift card he has thus far, every weapon he's accumulated thus far, he can combine them. Like 3 I gave you before, Spike, Flare, and Shadow are then combined into the Trideron attack 1, 2, 3, where he can use all 3 of them at once. He's got People Saver, using shift cards to use Cranes, Mad Doctor to assist people. He's got, and lastly, Genbar, which is all of his construction-based ones, which he can then use and mix together. Very Forza Cosmic-esque. Is a great. Not to mention, in this form, he becomes one with Dr. Belt. They're in the same head. Much like W, Dr. Belt can take over, and when he does, he's much more powerful and much more experienced in fighting.
Tell me about W.
Now, W doesn't end up having a lot of collectibles. He's definitely not going to end up winning on that, because you know how these shows...
I'm not talking about collectibles. Tell me about his forms. Tell me why they'd be better than his.
Now, okay, so to begin with, he ends up having Cyclone Joker, Metal, and Trigger. He can end up interchanging at least for 1/2 on each, the various forms that he ends up getting. With Cyclone Joker, he ends up becoming, a much more martial arts-based fighter with wind abilities. With Metal, he can end up using the
Bow staff
to basically just end up creating
In
a
cyclone
ship.
form, can he fly?
Yes, he can fly. He can levitate. But
I knew he can. I just needed to hear you say it.
yes.
Okay.
He can end up, with Metal, he can end up creating a giant whirlwind that we end up seeing in Battle War Genesis. And Trigger, he end up sending out very, very fast shots with his Cyclone shot.
Trigger gives him access to the gun, but
Yep,
he has
the
to have
Trigger ends up
Trigger.
getting him.
He has to have Trigger.
Don't
equipped.
help him.
Yep.
No, I'm specifying. I'm trapping
Don't help
him.
him too much.
I'm trapping him. There's a difference.
Now, for Heat,
Well, don't.
for Heat Joker, he ends up getting
Let him talk for
access
now.
to fire-based attacks, just like Max Flare. For Heat Metal, he can basically just ends up jetting out gigantic flamethrowers out of each end of the bow staff and just run towards them, or basically just ends up spinning it and creating a giant fire tornado around his face. With Heat Trigger, when he ends up getting access to the gun again, he can shoot out fireballs. With Luna Joker, he ends up getting access to a very, very long-range attack, which is basically just a...
Mr. Fantastic.
yes, he ends up getting access to basically Mr. Fantastic. With Luna Metal, he can end up stretching and malforming the bow staff to end up trapping anybody in it, throwing them around, just, blowing anybody away. With Luna Trigger, his shots end up becoming more like scatter shots, but they're also homing, where he can end up just shooting once, it splits into a whole bunch, and then hits you from a whole bunch of different ways. Now, his mid-season power-up is Fang Joker, where Philip ends up getting access to. It's extremely strong, however, it does have a time limit, where if he gets a hold of you, that's basically it. He's going to end up ripping you to shreds with either the shoulder blades or the blade that he ends up putting on the bottom of his leg, which apparently can kick through concrete like 6 feet wide. And I believe that he do that in show. For his final form, he gets access to Cyclone Joker Extreme, where Philip and Shotaro end up becoming a part of the Gaia, the world energy that they end up having in that show, where Philip immediately ends up getting access to basically everything that he can through his... We're going to keep calling it Google because that's exactly what it is. But he ends up getting access to the world power itself. Not to mention, he has a much longer sword, which has a very long reach, depending on which Gaia memory he ends up inserting into it, and he has a shield, which, with the prism memory that he gets access to with the Extreme, can blast out a gigantic beam of light, just like Formula can do, but it's something that's right there. Formula has to have a truck that ends up having to come in. Not to mention, there's also Cyclone Joker Gold Extreme, which gives him the ability to fly, gives him the access to control wind, and just go around. Just basically, it's a much more powerful version.
When you say control wind, like, how much can it control? What is the strongest you think you could do?
He could probably do some Gale Force winds in this one. I mean, all of his power ends up coming from wind, as we end up seeing in the Ada's The Eternal movie, when he gets access to basically Futo's wind-powered turbine, like all of his powers are coming from that.
May I make a counter argument?
Please do.
All of his weapons he can only access in certain forms. The bow staff, he must have metal equipped. The gun, he must have trigger equipped. Drive has a sword and a gun that he can access in any form at any point. The extreme sword he can only access in his final form. Yes, Drive has the formula cannon, which is the cannon that he gets with the formula form, but he can use that in the formula form and in the Trideron form, which ends up being his finisher in the Trideron form.
But do you not remember, at least especially for your gun, even though he does have to end up transforming into another one to use it, he has like the weirdest thing where he has to reload. Trigger doesn't have to do that.
Trigger doesn't have to reload, but I would also like to point out that the sword, the steering sword, has the ability to have him maneuver in very weird angles. Turn. And he pretty much does a 90-degree turn with the wheels on his ankles.
So does Luna. Luna ends up giving him basically just like a 360 peripheral.
No,
vision.
my argument is that to get this weapon out, you have to do a form change. To get my gun and my sword out, Trideron gives it to me. Doesn't matter what form I'm in. Unless I need the formula cannon, which is a finisher cannon, not a...
Not to mention it's a finisher cannon. If he ends up missing, the fact that he ends up going back into drive speed from Trideron is a definite issue.
It's an issue because he's...
and he missed.
Because the way Trideron works, it's every shift car in one shift car.
Yes.
Which he then puts into the cannon to load it. He's shooting every shift car at you. But I would still like to point out, Drive is fast. Type speed is called speed for a reason. He moves in the slowdown, which he does have access to use. This in Drive, there is this phenomenon that the monsters have called slowdown, where time slows down, but your perception of time doesn't. You know what's going on, but it takes forever. Drive can not only maneuver in that, he can control it. Because if Mott can do it, so can he. He just doesn't like to do it because his friend got hurt because of it. But he can access it. And that's why Formula was needed. When Chase made the super slowdown, Formula could even move in that, which also just logic dictates he can control the super slowdown as well, if he wanted to. Because he can move at that speed.
Now, there's one thing I didn't talk about, and I feel like I should have.
Please do.
He ends up becoming two riders because of the Final Form ride, or if they end up having two of the things as well.
You're talking about Decade.
I'm not really talking about Decade.
I'm talking about the Final Form ride. Decade.
I'm talking about, because you remember at the end of W, he ends up having just the one guy memory that he ends up having.
I know what he's talking about.
Yeah, the skull.
Yeah, and the fact that there is another one which, at least in the books, which are canon, Philip ends up getting access to one too, so it become Kamen Rider Joker and Kamen Rider Cyclone. And of course they can most likely end up switching between the two of them.
They can switch between the two of them, but
you gotta remember, Drive is still end up being just one person.
Who can multiply.
Yes. Well, he can only do it once though.
He can multiply up to 4, and they act independently of each other. It's not a mirror thing like with Wizard.
That is a problem with Wizard.
That's not the point. But I'm just saying, everything that you can do, I can match you, and in some cases exceed you.
Okay, I think I've heard all I need to hear about that.
Sorry.
Talk to me. No, you're fine. Talk to me about finishers.
Okay, so in Drive's base form, he has the steering slash, he has the rider kick. The steering slash, he puts a shift car into it, and it's a slide across the ground with one big slash as a finisher. The rider kick, which he underused, but it's a very good rider kick.
It is.
He has Trideron.
I'll allow it because the reason he didn't use it so much was budgetary constraints.
Mm-hmm.
And he used it twice, once in the first episode and once in the movie. The Trideron drives in a circle over and over and over. He gets 4 stacks of tires to then, while he is in the center of said circle. Mm-hmm. Enemy gets shoved with the tires, kind of like Hot Wheel, shot into the circle, where he jumps up, bounces off Trideron to kick him over and over and over until one final kick. Let's see. He never really uses the door gun as a finisher. It's much more of like a...
But is it a finisher that he can access?
I don't think that it is.
No, it's more of like a police officer's 9mm Glock.
Okay.
It's just something. Then there is the Formula Cannon, which is a giant Formula... I don't want to say gun. It's for the...
It's more of a cannon.
Well, it's a cannon, but I'm talking about the shape it's in. It's the giant semi-truck that the car goes in the back of when they're on the road.
Okay.
He can put in up to 3 shift cars, I believe, into it.
Either 2 or 3.
Yeah, up to 3 shift cars into it as ammunition. So unless he's using the one he currently has equipped, it's not an issue. That's the issue with Trideron. It's bigger, but he shoots it all out as a finisher. With Trideron, he does it if he puts the Trideron shift car in it, it's a much bigger blast, much more powerful, and much more effective. The backlash is that he did just use the shift card he had equipped on his wrist. So he has to go back to his base form.
What is the biggest and strongest thing he's ever taken out with a finisher?
I would have to say either it's one of the gold villains. Either the first one or
The last one?
I don't think he used it on Heart. I can't remember as very well, but
No, he didn't.
no, Heart was more of a fist to fist. But the enemies have they have their own super form of their plating gold, which is what Trideron was needed for. It literally killed him. It literally killed when this first villain got gold. He literally killed him, and they brought him back using, I would have to say, Back to the Future type technology.
They did.
Drive Trideron at 88 miles per hour and bring him back to life. And that's how Mr. Belt and Drive became one being.
Okay.
And but once he got Trideron, the one that literally killed him an episode ago, he walked through.
To be fair, that's just something that happens in the show.
But did he ever really have an issue with monsters after he got Trideron? Really?
Medic. He had a big issue with Medic near the end. He had a big issue with Brain when that first happened. Heart, he couldn't even really do anything to. He kept getting
But he still wins.
The only reason he ended up...
Why did Medic give him so much trouble?
Medic can heal herself.
Oh, I see.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she's called Medic. She can heal herself and others.
Can W heal himself?
Drive can heal himself.
Can W heal himself?
I'm just saying. You didn't ask me.
No, not really. Well, I believe that he can. If it happens a little bit more with Extreme, as we ended up saying, a lot of things happen with Extreme. Because the Gaia Force ends up helping them and can end up healing a lot of their wounds at the end too. I remember because that happens when they end up fighting Utopia near the very end of the show.
I have Mad Doctor.
Very good. Tell me about W's finishers.
W's finisher, especially with Cyclones, because that's the one that we end up seeing the most of. When he ends up bringing in those Gale Force winds, because his rider kick is basically just going up, a giant hurricane forms around him, and then he kicks you twice and you explode. At least with Metal, he ends up bringing out these wind rings that he can end up shooting through you. Mm-hmm. With Trigger, as we said, they're very, very fast shots, which can basically just end up shooting through you. He's done that a couple times in the show. With Heat, Trigger, Fireball, and he ends up creating a giant flamethrower out of the end of his gun. With Metal, it's two giant flamethrowers that he ends up spinning around and then rushing you, which ends up creating a very, very hot heat spear around him that can basically end up damaging the enemy before he ends up doing them, or at least stunning them in some way. With Heat Joker, his hands end up becoming on fire, and he ends up just melting you with the punches that he's ended up doing, or his rider kick, where he just does a normal rider kick, which is just his foot on fire. With Luna Trigger, he ends up doing multiple shots, and he ends up coming to you like Piccolo and Dragon Ball Z when you first fought in Android 17.
And then they all just home in on him.
Yep. He ends up doing a whole bunch of shots, and they come to him like that. With Metal, he ends up doing sort of like these energy discs, which he can shoot towards you, or he just ends up slapping the hell out of you with the end of his bow staff over and over again from a very long distance away. With Joker, he ends up grabbing you from wherever you are because of how Luna can make you extend, and grabs you and just brings you in to kick you. And he's very good at just getting you close. With Fang, he ends up having the shoulder blade, which you can throw, and it goes back and forth, and will end up finding you at some point, because you're not going to avoid that forever. With his rider kick, he ends up jumping into the air, has a blade on the bottom of his foot, and he spins around in a 360 degree. And just, if you're in his way, just like with Type Formula, with the beam and everything, if you're in his way, he's going to end up kicking you, or at least slashing some part of your body, and hurting you extremely. Speaking of Extreme, with Cyclone Joker Extreme, he has two ways to do it. He ends up inserting the Prism memory into the shield, and it blasts out a beam that he can move back and forth. Which Drive, I do not believe that he can actually move while doing that. Or he ends up having the sword, which can extend an energy blade out from it, and ends up slashing in front of him, or he ends up putting out a beam from the sword itself. With Cyclone Joker Gold Extreme, he ends up using the winds around him, and he has wings, so of course he can end up flying with this. He ends up using winds and brings you up and kicks through you, just as a regular double rider kicks short of like Shadow moves.
Okay.
If I may, there is some information I need to bring in terms of Drive's corner that I have yet to have a chance to go over, and this does fall under kind of the finisher category and a previous category we went over.
Mm-hmm.
He has two other forms that allow him access to other shift cars. There's Type Wild, which allows him access to a drill shift car that he can use to punch drills, kind of like Forza, but with his actual hand, not terrible show. This form is a defensive-based tank. He can take hits a lot more in this form. And then there's Type Technic, which is a very high intelligent form, which he used, by the way, to take out all 5 ninjas single-handedly using his gun. It is he can process information, find the weak point to shoot. He prefers to use his door gun in this form because he can find the right place to shoot and then get there with pinpoint accuracy. And these forms change the look of Trideron. Trideron can actually move around. When he's in Type Wild, Trideron kind of gets a dune buggy look where it can go on different terrains, and when he's in Type Technic, it gets arms that he can then use as well.
Alright, I understand. Marcus, counterpoint?
The only other form that that Double himself ends up having is...
Do you have anything to counter anything he just said?
The only other one that we end up having is the Double Rider forms.
Yes, I have that already.
And that's basically it. Double doesn't end up coming with a lot of forms because of, they just didn't want to invest as much with the toys with this one.
Any other questions that you had before any additional arguments on our end?
I do.
Oh, this should be...
Alright, so we are in a gladiator arena. Gates open on either side. These two walk in. They've never seen each other in their lives. What is the first move they make? They're already henching.
The thing is, these two riders are not... Well, I don't know about... Yeah, sorry.
Answer the question. What is the first thing that they would do?
He would analyze the situation to see what exactly is going on, and he probably would not make the first move. He would only attack if he is under attack, especially if he can recognize it's a fellow Kamen Rider.
Marcus?
I would probably end up saying the same thing. Shotaro would end up asking Philip if he ends up knowing anything about this rider, or if he can get any information about him first.
Okay, what's the second thing they do?
If they are being forced to fight, the second thing they
It's
would do...
death battle rules. There are no rules, just they're fighting.
Okay, if they're just plain out fighting, he's going to start off with speed and go through his various shift cars that he can go access through speed to see what exactly is he working with.
Okay, Marcus?
Because of how far away he is, most likely they would end up switching the trigger first and going through the various guy memories that they have to end up shooting them.
But Drive can close the gap really quickly.
That wasn't the point here.
No, the point is that your point is that your point is that he's going to start off with range. My point is I can get in close before you have a lot of chance to do that.
He has to see his defensive first before he ends up doing anything else. Most likely, Drive would end up doing the same thing with the door gun. I always go to see exactly what you can do first.
Okay, well, based on the arguments and the evidence that has been presented, I declare the winner to be Drive.
I'm not surprised.
Yay.
He gave me more to work with. Everything that he said, like, he can do everything that W can do, but he can also match it and also exceed it. The way he works with Dr. Belt and the way he works with Trideron, the way he is able to access all those different forms and how fast he is. I really think that Drive would have the advantage in a one-on-one fight.
The thing about Drive is that if he's used by the right person, he can be really broken. But the problem is he's used by
Not the right person.
No, he's used by a police officer.
So that being said, in the case of who would win, based on what's presented, I think Drive would win.
Thank you so much. But as always,
next time,
what?
we should do Kuga versus Elvis.
That could be an interesting one, but I would like to maybe do a Sentai one next.
Ooh, who should we do for Sentai next?
We'll talk about that later, Marcus. When we're not recording.
But if you have a suggestion, please
Please
feel
let us-
free to leave it in the comments.
Please let us know. Do you agree with Jacob's decision? Do you not? Let us know why, and always let us know who do you think we should pin against each other. Welcome back to Who Would Win. We hope to make many more. Bye!
Bye.